Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Chris Legaspi, and today we are going to continue the Skills That Pay the Bills series. Today's topic will be how to finish. So, shading, finishing, rendering is a big part of illustration, definitely a big part of the type of work I do, the movie poster illustration and concept work. You got to be able to draw your faces, illustrate them, and also be able to take them to a level of finish. Now we're going to focus on tonal finishes here. Not going to do colors, so just black and white, nice rendered finishes. And we're going to do more of the exercises to help you improve how to do quick finishing and, also improve your shading and value control, really, because those are the two main skills that need to be addressed here. Controlling your values and composing your values. We're going to go through some exercises to help you improve that. And before we begin, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my free Insiders Club. Insiders Club members get first access to these weekly live streams, and you also get access to other live events, and you get discounts on courses and programs, along with access to free lessons and other free content available only to subscribers. So all you have to do is go to www.drawwithchris.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go. We're going to begin with a warm-up exercise of value scales, and then we're going to do some tonal studies after a master illustrator. Then I'm going to do some value composition thumbnails, and then I'm going to do a finish with a timer and a deadline to sort of simulate the work environment. And before we begin, comment below. Let me know where you are located. Where are you calling from, watching from? I'm currently in Thailand at the moment. It's 9 in the morning for me. So thank you for joining me wherever you are. So we're going to begin with exercise number 1, which are value scales. So value scales are one of the most fundamental and crucial exercises to help you improve your shading, your rendering, because it helps you improve your value control. And there's so many ways to do value scales. You can do them with a smooth gradient like this image on top here. You can do little squares like this. This is also very useful. You can do it with various techniques, hatching, cross-hatching, stipples, things like that, textural marks. You can do 9 squares, 10 squares. You can do them on white paper, or you can do them on toned paper. So I'm going to show you some examples now. Okay, here's just a quick example of a gradient done on white paper. And I'm using graphite in this case. It might be a little more difficult to see because of the glare. Graphite is a bit shiny, it's reflective, and I'm recording this video and there's a big light shining on my paper. So it may not appear as dark as it does in with the naked eye. But essentially making a gradient with graphite using various grades, starting with the HB, then the 2B, the 4B. Here I'm using 6V. And what I like to do is establish, when I'm working on tone paper, I like to establish sort of the mid-tone first, what the middle tone will look like, and then I go for what the blackest black will look like, the dark end. And that's what I'm doing here. Here I'm switched to charcoal because again, graphite is just a little too reflective and looks very bright on camera. But the charcoal absorbs more light, so it looks darker. And here, this gives me what my dark range is, and the paper is my brightest bright. So obviously now I can adjust all the tones in between. So that's a good way to do this exercise, is to establish your darkest dark and your lightest light first. So if you're working on white paper, your lightest light is already there. It's the paper. Then you just establish your darkest dark and then work in between to make a nice smooth gradient and improve your value control. Okay, here is an example of a tone paper value scale exercise. And I'm using colored pencil, so I'm much more comfortable on colored pencil. And tone paper is much more fun, in my opinion, because you can add white, which I will do. So here, what I start by doing, I will start to establish my darks first, because I know that the paper is roughly in the middle. It's more of a light halftone, and then I make nine boxes in this case. So I'm going to start with the dark ends, and this is what I'm doing now. I'm using colored pencil here, so a wax base, and it's building up, just building up the tones, really just building up using various strokes, downstroke, left to right, just build, 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 build. Now I'm switching to a darker pencil, and it's a softer black colored pencil, and it'll help me get my darkest dark. So that's what I need. Then I use a marker. It's just ordinary Sharpie marker, and this will give me an even darker black than I could with the pencil alone. So now I know exactly, okay, this is how dark my range will be in this value scale. And once I have that, I'll know clearly how dark I can go. Then I can establish how bright I can go, which what I'll do next. Here I'm using a colored pencil. This is as bright as I can go. And just going over with some layers of colored pencil. This again, Prismacolor white pencil. It looks really nice and bright on this tone paper. Now that I have my brightest bright established, I can just work towards the dark now and just add some more tones and gradations of with the white pencil in reverse. Establish my highlight, my lightest light highlight, and then go back and work all the tones in between to get the nice smooth gradient. So that's what's really fun about this exercise, is just it's very simple. You know, you're completely focused on your value control, and you also get to learn your materials as well. You get to learn, you know, how dark you can go with your materials, whether you need to do mixed media like I did here. So it's just a great overall exercise for value control. If you want to have professional looking shading, you got to do this. You got to get that control. Okay, exercise number 2 is tonal composition studies, and we're going to look at master illustrators. Obviously, if you want to have professional looking finishes, one way to speed up your learning curve is to just straight up study or copy great finishers, great illustrators, successful illustrators from the past. There's so many to think of. This page is N.C. Wyeth, one of the great masters. Also, look at Howard Pyle comes to mind. David Grove comes to mind. Drew Struzan comes to mind. Ben Oliver is one of my favorites. He has some great, he's a more contemporary guy, comic book and poster artist. Even people like Rembrandt's, the older masters, Velasquez even is great. He's more of a fine artist, portrait artist. Leyendecker would be great to study. Cornwell, obviously, but I look at Cornwell all the time. I was worried you guys might get bored, so we're gonna look at Wyeth today. But if you look at Wyeth, right, this is just my personal folder of Wyeth examples. You can see how cinematic his images are, and that's why I like him so much. And you know, a lot of the composition skills that I have, that I use in my work and on the job working for clients, you know, a lot of it I learned this way. I just spent literally 2 years looking at and copying compositions, studying compositions, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So now, whenever I need to do a finish, I have all of this great information, all of these shapes, all of these tones, all of these arrangements in the back of my mind, because I learned it from the great masters. And Wyeth was just one of many that I looked at over and over and over again, studied the composition and the values. And you'll see them as you do them, you'll start to see like, oh, okay, he arranges his darks this way, or oh, he puts his highlights this way, or oh, his midtones are arranged this way, or oh, he makes a vignette here, or he makes a gradient there. You'll start to see patterns and techniques and strategies, and you could totally apply them to your work because most of these, if not all of these, were all commercial works in his time. These were all book covers and things like that, magazine illustrations, and they had deadlines just like everybody else. So these had to get done in a certain amount of time. These had to get done quickly, probably if necessary. So if we can study and learn that from studying these great master illustrators. Okay, I'm going to go through an example with the Wyeth, NC Wyeth, and this is just one of his works here. There's so many, as you can see, there's so many to choose from. I just like this one because it kind of feels like a movie poster. It's a vertical format. It's got the upper thirds. You can put the text up here. So it's, this could be Tom Hanks movie Castaway comes to mind. This could be a total Castaway movie poster. But yeah, the first thing you want to do is to take a look at the masterwork and sort of squint. That's what this image in the middle is here, squinting. And that way you get more of lose the detail information and see the value information and shape information. And here on the right, this is just a crude filter I'd put on Photoshop. This is kind of what we're going to be after. This is the result, a nice simple 3-value deconstruction, 3-value study. And also we're going to look at his gradients and shapes and arrangements. That's the key part, is how he arranges the value, and the gradients is a big part of it too. Okay, step one is I'm going to match the aspect ratio as best as I can. And as you can see, I'm using tone paper here. This is what my sketchbook looks like. Okay, now I'm going to draw the shapes. So there's a figure here. I'm not going to do an exact copy, just a nice overall tonal sketch. What I want is the shapes. I want to know how he arranges his shapes, how he designs his shapes, how he places his shapes, and then the value. So the shapes of value. And then finally, I want to look at really the gradients, the vignettes, framing, placement of highlights, that kind of thing. That's where the finish really comes from. As you can see, the rendering, a lot of rendering and shading really is just, if you want to do it quickly, one way to do it quickly is with very intelligent gradients. Very simple gradients, which is exactly why you want to practice the value scales, because the bulk of what you'll be doing, it will be gradients of value, controlling your gradients of value. So obviously the value, that's exactly what value scales will teach you, is how to do that, give you that control, that dexterity, that confidence with your materials, that competence. So all of that's important. And normally I do these quite small. I know I do them about 3 inches tall in my sketchbook. This one is obviously is huge, really. It's a little bit more difficult, actually, in my opinion, to do them this big, because right now I'm like all getting stuck on the details. I'm like, oh, beautiful detail. Oh my God. Yeah, normally I do these quite small, but obviously for this class, I want to for the video, gotta make it look good on video. So, but yeah, do them small. So it's a little bit helpful, actually. Beautiful clouds. Notice how, just look at the way he stylized his clouds. He didn't have to draw clouds like that. That's just he didn't have to draw them at an angle. And look at the beautiful colors he's getting. Look at these cross clouds. I mean, that is crazy. But now, now I can do that in my composition. If I want to put a cool sky, I would just steal. I just learned something new. I learned that you could do this little horizontal cloud thing. I mean, the diagonal cloud thing is obvious, but now I know you could do a horizontal cloud thing too. Why not? Good enough for Wyeth, good enough for me. Okay, so that's pretty good in terms of the shape, my initial drawing. Okay, now I'm going to add some tones. So I just wanted to bring this up. So this is kind of what I see in my mind's eye, and this is what I'm going to try to analyze and complete in my study. So what I like to do is look for what's dark. This one is really obvious. Clearly, the darkest thing is the shadow on our character, and he has black hair. So that is definitely important, and we need to get that down. He has a shadow over his face. I'm going to also group that. If you squint, that shadow on his face kind of groups and melds with everything. And let's see, this whole ground plane, excuse me, the water, very dark here. This pole, even his pants in light, I'm just going to group that with dark because I want to keep it really simple and graphic. And then the shape, I can also add gradations as well as I go. But right now I want to do really graphic shapes. So I'm working with just a really graphic kind of marker type brush here. And I would do this in marker on my sketchbook if I was doing traditional. If I wasn't doing a recording, uh, definitely do this on tone paper. It's a lot more fun and marker. And because it's so big, I can see the little tiny detail shapes and getting a little too caught up. I should speed up a little bit here. It's interesting shapes, little, I'm not sure if that's a wave or a life raft or little floaty things, some kind of floaty thingy. The water is not dark. The waves of the water. The water itself is majority dark, but the waves have some little crests on them. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. I'm thinking I should group his shadow on his body too. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I got my darkest dark. It's time to block in my brightest bright. Okay, what's the brightest thing? It's clearly this sky. So here's an interesting lesson, something to think about. So when you're doing these, or when I do these, I'm always thinking, I didn't know you could do that. Or, that's interesting, right? Like when I was drawing the cloud, I'm like, I didn't know you could put horizontal clouds like that. Okay, I'm going to try that in my next piece. You know what I mean? Now I'm looking like, oh, interesting. His darkest dark is actually at the very bottom of the frame, and his brightest bright is at the very top. Isn't that interesting? I didn't really know you could do, I guess you can do whatever you want in composition, but you see what I mean? You're like, now I have something I can use in my own work if I want to. This is essentially what I'm seeing. This sort of arrangement. It's really pretty. The little seagull has a thing there, a little bit of highlight. Even the ship, let's call that out a little bit. Okay, now I'm starting to examine and I can see, okay, he put little tiny highlights down here. So what this tells me is he was fully conscious and aware of the tonal arrangement. You guys see that? See right here on the original, you see these little tiny highlight shapes on the waves, little crest highlights. That's intentional. He didn't have to make them really bright. They're the same brightness as the clouds, but they're so small, so they barely see them, right? And then the dark frames it and makes it really nice and compelling. And now check this out. I just caught this, that there is a big chunk of dark at the very top, but it's at a gradient. So this is fantastic. So this is a use of gradients, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But do you see that? Now I know it's blue and it's not as dark as the sun, or excuse me, as dark as the character's hair or the water, but it's just enough dark, right, to draw your eye up here and frame the big light shape. So we have a big dark shape with a little bit of light shape, a big light shape with a little bit of dark. See, that is what I'm talking about. And look at the placement. Look at the placement. You have big dark, small light at the bottom, big light, small dark at the top. So look at that outstanding balance. Outstanding. See, now we can put that in our own work. So let's keep going here. This is a lot of fun. Now I'm switching to an airbrush and do some gradients. See, every time I do this, I'm just like, oh my God. I just, so much admiration for these men, for these greats. Because it just reminds you, like, geez, these guys were really good. And, they're old. You could argue that some of them have never been matched today, right? If you think of people like Sargent and Leyendecker. So there's a gradient. There's a beautiful gradient that goes from dark to light, top to bottom. You guys see that? Dark up here, upper right, lighter, lighter as it gets to the middle. Beautiful gradient. Then there's a reverse gradient happening the bottom up. You see the bottom, darker, and then lighter. And that echoes the light direction. The light is from the right, upper right. So it's just absolutely stunning, stunning design. I mean, I haven't done these in a while, but when I first did this exercise, it was my mentor, the great Steve Huston. He was like, hey, you guys want to be good painters? You want to be good artists? You want to be professionals? You want to make money? Do value composition studies, because, you're basically saying shorten your learning curve. Don't mess around. Don't try to do this on your own. learn from the best. But look at the beautiful gradients happening at the bottom. It's just spectacular. And now I know, like, now that I'm doing them after a while, I'm like, oh my God, I need to do more of these. I just really starting to see, like, how important this has been for me, and just how much there is to learn when you just do a deep study into these greats. And there's so many. Cornwell is one that I looked at over and over again. Wyeth was one. Wyeth, you can also look at it for colors. Look at the color controls. That's a whole other topic, but it's also excellent. Look at the gradients. This is just outstanding. Man, I'm gonna put this little bit of gradient from light to dark. I know my gradients right now look a little sloppy in the Photoshop, but I'm also rushing, for the sake of time here. Maybe a little bit of that bird. I didn't draw the bird, but these birds are necessary. Now that I look at it, it's a necessary part. And look at this little chunk of light. You see that right here? It's on the bird, also at his head. That's not an accident. What it gives you is a pyramid of light, a triangle of light. Light at the top, light on this little shape here, light on the bottom. So you have this beautiful triangle. And that that is just mastery. And that you should use in your work. If you're watching this at home and you've never looked at Wyeth, now you know you can use triangle of light or any value really to get an accented shape. So I'm gonna wrap this up for the sake of time. Obviously, you could make the gradients smoother and make your drawing a little bit tighter. But yeah, I feel pretty good about this. As you can see, as I went through it, I'm analyzing his shapes, his values, and his gradients, and I'm learning quite a bit. And all of this stuff I can use in my own work when I need to finish a composition, a tonal composition, a finished illustration. This one's kind of fun. You can follow along with me. This is a tonal thumbnail iterations. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same thumbnail sketch and do as many value composition iterations as I can, variations. So you can do a simple composition with a figure, just sketch a figure with some kind of background. And we'll see what I can do here. And ideally, you want to do at least 10 or more. I'm going to try to go through as many as I can on this video. Okay, the first thing I like to do is think about, do I want dark character against a light background? That's really the most basic thing to do, to think about. So let's see what that would look like. I'm just going to do a dark. It's just a little too dark, and the background's a little too light, so we can fix that. So this is my character. He's holding a bat. This is a poster concept for the movie Train to Busan, Korean zombie movie. Comment below if you've seen Train to Busan. It's an excellent movie. So I'd like to figure out, do I want light or dark against light? So this one, dark character with a light background. In this case, it's a mid-tone. Let's adjust that dark a little bit. Okay, darken the background a little bit, and then I'm going to put in this white shape behind him. Let's just see what that looks like. Just to give me an idea of what a dark character on a light background looks like. If I don't like it, I could do some more. Obviously, that's really the whole thing, is just to do a bunch and see which one is looking good, really. And this probably could use some gradients as well, instead of these little flat shapes. But okay, actually that one looks pretty good. Now let's try the reverse. Why not? The beauty of this is they're small, they're thumbnails. You can try as many as you want very quickly. Okay, so I have a light on dark, and then I'm going to play with that same diagonal horizontal shape and see if I can make it mid-tone, dark, darker. Oh, that looks pretty good actually when I make the central column dark and then put a mid-tone on the side. Okay, I like that. Let me put some mid-tone in the character. He's a little too bright. He's going to have dark hair, obviously. He's a Korean actor. Okay, that looks okay. Yeah, that looks okay. Light, started with light on dark. Then I was like, let me try some mid-tone. Looks okay. Actually, I kind of like it better than the other one. Now let's try mid-tone character. What if we keep the character mid-tone and then play with light and dark in the background? Let's see what that looks like. Okay, now we have a mid-tone character. I wonder what it would look like if we play with some of the darks in the background. Here we have the kind of a dark behind him, a dark strip behind him with kind of a darker mid-tone. So this is mid-tone and dark. And let's play with the light a little bit. So I'm going to play with the light a little bit, kind of make him, let's just make this a pretty dark image, put a dark gradient everywhere. And then we can hit the highlight somewhere on him. So remember what we learned from what's his name, Wyatt. We don't have to put the highlight on the character. We can put it in the background, in the clouds or whatever. So this case, I don't like that. I'm gonna do one more variation of this mid-tone character against whatever background. Let's play around with it one more time. Okay, here we have mid-tone character, dark background with the white strip behind him. I like this the least, but you know what? It's worth a try. Let's just see if we can make it any better at all with possibly some gradients. It just might be a little too bright. Could be one problem. And then maybe make the character a little darker so that it kind of fits back in. See, once you have the basic shapes blocked in, then you play with gradients, and that's exactly what. Again, it's another thing I learned from the masters, and we saw that Wyeth did the exact same thing, is that the shape comes first, the value comes second, and then third comes gradients, edges, things like that. So shapes of value first. And let's see what if put a dark in the middle. I don't really like that. I like this the least. So I'll probably not going to do another variation with the light directly behind him. But you see how important it is to play with it and how quickly we could easily do 20 or 100 of these and fine tune it until you get one that kind of works. So comment below. We're going to move on from here. Comment below. Which one do you think so far would you move forward with? Would you take to a finish? Because really the point of this exercise is it helps you to do a block in and to give yourself a roadmap. Without a game plan, your finish is going to be much, much slower. You kind of want to have a game plan going. I don't know. I kind of like the middle one. Let's see what I kind of like the middle one a little bit. Let's play with some variations of that. But it looks like light character with dark background roughly is a good way to go. But obviously you want to do as many as you can to work this out. But that's how you start. That's how you start. Okay, exercise number 4 is finish with a deadline or finish with a timer. So obviously if you want to be a professional, you want to be in illustration or even fine arts, you're doing gallery shows, you're going to need to finish your work with the deadlines. You're going to need to meet the deadlines. A great way to practice that is to give yourself a deadline or to set a timer. And I'm going to go through this illustration here. A good benchmark, at least in the work that I do for movie posters, it's roughly an hour to do a finished tone sketch, a tone concept. But if that's a little too aggressive, and it can be if you have multiple characters or complex backgrounds, So aim for 2 or 3 hours, depending on where you're at and your confidence level, and slowly build up to 1 hour. So for the sake of this video, I'm only going to do about a 10-minute block in just for the sake of this video and just to also practice myself. So I'm going to set a timer here. You're going to see one on screen as well. And you could follow along with me as I try to do a fast finish, or in this case, a fast block in with a timer. Okay, I got all of my reference laid out just to give me some inspiration and some ideas for what kind of the values and shapes for the background. And I got my little thumbnail here that we just did. It's the best one that I did, best iteration so far. I think it's the most interesting, but we can see what we can do with it. And yeah, I'm going to set my timer now for 10 minutes to see how far I can get and to practice working with a deadline. So 3, 2, 1, go. All right, first thing I'm going to do is darken the background and lighten the character, right? Establish our primary value pattern, which is dark character, light character against a dark background. Quickly block in the shape. Obviously, the the shape is important because I have a timer of kind of being forced to be more simplified, which is great. It's another reason why you want to do this exercise. It's just it helps you to simplify. It gives you clarity, helps you to prioritize. If you have unlimited time, you'll be doing basically whatever. And that's not good. So the drawing obviously is set to multiply. I'm going to turn the drawing down. Oh, wait a minute. Did I do that wrong? Okay, there you go. All right. So let me just clean up my mask a little bit. I do need it to be somewhat accurate. I'm running out of time. I got 7 minutes left. So obviously, if you're working from home, you want to do this part. Take your time here, obviously. Just doing the best I can. But this shape will save me time once I have it and it's looking good. It's going to save me time in the long run. I want to do that diagonal dark shape. Let me just establish that. This movie's got this high paced. Oh, that looks kind of nice. Okay. I'm running out of time here. So what I'm going to do is block in my shadow shape. See if I can make the shadow. Yeah. So I'm going to take the value from the background and see if I can bring that into the character. I think the main problem is right now I'm going much slower than I want to. A lot of it is because I'm not really happy with the value thumbnail I did in the previous step. I would take much more time. Obviously, for this video, I gotta do it quickly and I gotta talk, which is it's difficult. A lot of the way I compose, it takes a lot of concentration, so I have to. Obviously, I'm not going to be talking. Anyway, I'm just making an excuse, I guess. But this is it's just it's obviously I gotta talk, so it's frigging slowing me down. Normally, I just think. I get in the zone, basically, in this, what I'm talking about, the zone where you're fully concentrated and aware. Yeah, let's see. So the background is ugly. It needs some help. I'm going to fix that now. Let's try a gradient from the bottom up. Okay, it doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too bad. Let's bring in some light shapes back into this, because this big black shape is very strange. I'm going to see if I can bring in some of this dark to it. And let's see. These are the kind of things I would work out more in detail, but again, for the sake of this video, I had to rush quickly. I would do more iterations to figure out exactly what I want behind him and how I want those details arranged. Let's see if I can play with some of the lighter shapes here, like this. Okay, that kind of works. Just hinting at some foreground detail. See, that looks kind of nice. I'm looking at the reference for some inspiration as to what these kind of shapes could look like. These little tops of chairs is helpful. But again, a lot of this stuff I should have figured out already. And there'll be zombies here behind him. Obviously, that would be nice. Okay, it's looking better. It's looking much better. Imagine once there are gradients, and I know I'm running out of time. My timer's going to go off soon. Got about 20 seconds left. So I think the character is so bright. I'm trying to think how bright I can go in the background right now, how dark I can go in the foreground. Remember, like, the timer. Remember how we saw with Wyeth, he put darks in the foreground. So that's what I need next. I need to put some darks in the foreground. But anyway, my timer is up. Obviously, 10 minutes is not enough. I'm just trying to show you how to do the exercise. So thank you so much for joining me, and definitely give yourself more than 10 minutes. I would say start with 2 hours. That's a nice benchmark. See how far you can go, and definitely take your time with the tonal compositions, because once you have that, this will come very, very quickly.